you can create your own wrestler, like me.
And use all of my signature moves.
Battle it out in some of my favorite matches, like Lights Out.
Now it's time for you to create your unforgettable moments. AEW Fight Forever.
Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, I'm sad, man. I am so sad. All right, little bit of a history lesson for your boy, Mr. Matty. I used to grow up loving wrestling. I remember going to SummerSlam with my dad and watching, I think, King Booker fight Rey Mysterio at one point. I mean, I adored wrestling growing up. And as I got into my teenage years, I fell out of it. And it was AEW that pulled me back in 2019. I've watched Dynamite every single week since then. For those who are unfamiliar with AEW, it's a weekly wrestling program where they have a lot of stars that have been homegrown, you know, your Darby Allins, your MJFs, your Jungle Boys, your Sammy Guevaras, but then you also have familiar faces like Chris Jericho, you have Sting. It's like a best of both worlds for those who are trying to get back into wrestling, and it really, I think, mimics a lot of the Attitude Era, which I also adored growing up. So to me, it's just beautiful wrestling, beautiful storytelling, and it's the only television I truly do watch, to the point where most of my YouTube time has now been consumed by wrestling news, wrestling rumors. I adore it, and it's all thanks to AEW. So naturally, when AEW announced that they have a video game on the way, much of the excitement around AEW was finally competition in the wrestling market. Yay! It's not just WWE, which had a lot of slip-ups, it's AEW too. And AEW could bring the same type of energy to the wrestling game community, where we had things like WrestleQuest on the way, but it's just your every now and then WWE game. And now we have Yuke's, the former WWE game developers, working on AEW's video game with a more arcadey, no mercy focus. This sounds like a match made in heaven. THQ provided me a review code really far in advance of this game's release. I've had a couple of weeks with the game, and y'all, even me, one of the biggest AEW marks that you can find on the market cannot justify this game at full price, $60. It is so disappointing in so many ways. As a wrestling game that you can pick up and play, it gets a decent thumbs up from me, but almost hesitatingly so, because everything else around it just, number one, does not convey to me as a huge AEW fan how special this product is, whether it be special match types or moves or looks, appearances, events, and so on and so forth, to a shoddy career mode, which I'm gonna go off on. But also, as someone who may be trying to get into AEW, I don't think it conveys to any of you how special this brand is, which is a failure on their part, unfortunately. And again, I was rooting for this game as one of my most anticipated games. The moment it got that release day, I was like, finally, I cannot wait, because I love AEW, and the idea of finishing Dynamite or finishing Collision and firing this up. I mean, it's the perfect time for an AEW game to strike, with Forbidden Door, with All In on the way. I mean, it's just, there's so much to be excited about with this brand, Collision being fresh and new. So let's talk about the game, ladies and gentlemen. I've gone through the history of this company enough. Certainly you already know my verdict in a sense, but if you're new here, you're into day one reviews, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. I played this on the PS5. I gotta start off with this career mode, y'all. I'm not even gonna go into the visuals yet, because a lot of people I've seen have defended it, saying, they're going for no mercy style stuff. Nah, man, some of these character models are genuinely lifeless and not okay. They're not acceptable for today's standards, especially for a $60 game. They're not good. It's really this career mode that bugs me a lot. So let me tell you all about the story of the wrestler Light Yagami. That's right, my man Light has decided to drop the death note and now start dropping power bombs instead. So the character creator is pretty solid. I found I was able to make the character I wanted to overall. And so what happens is, when you start up a career mode, is you get recruited pretty immediately by Tony Khan. It's in that opening cutscene that you're like, all right, this is feeling really low budget, but if it's fun and frenetic and whatever, then sure, I'm gonna be okay with it. So as you're going through this career mode, you're gonna be able to spend your week leading up to Dynamite however you want. You can go out to eat, you can go train in the gym where there's a chance you injure yourself, but if not, you get extra skill points. And you can also visit the local area. So as you go on tour, let's say you go to Philadelphia, you can visit the Liberty Bell, and you might bump into one of the fellow wrestlers there. During these moments are some of the weirdest, most random conversations that happen, and there's no real main storyline guiding you because each playthrough, each road to the elite is what they call this career mode, is different. And I get the idea because probably the design philosophy behind it was everyone's road to the top is different, but your road to the top may not involve you challenging for an AEW championship belt. Why is that? You have no choice in that. There's no choice in the story path. Do you want to go for a tag team belt? Do you want to go for the trios belt? Do you want to go for the World Heavyweight Championship? There's none of that. I lucked into it in my first playthrough, and then I did a second playthrough, and this time I didn't get the challenge for anything except the FTW belt. Why? I have no idea. So as you're going from point A to point B throughout your week, maybe you're eating, you'll encounter MJF, and everyone's gonna wear pretty much the same black t-shirt and jeans as they converse with you and say very random things that, again, I think are supposed to be fun, but when there's no overall main storyline guiding it, it's really out of place. What is the main story here? Well, let me tell you again the journey of Light Yagami. So I ended up teaming up with Adam Page for a tag team match. So then Thunder Rosa, of all members of the roster, decides to approach me and say, hey, stay away from Adam Page. Okay. I have no choice in whether I can continue to engage with him or not. And then she shows up during a press conference. She power bombs me through a table. Okay. Then I end up doing a 1-on-2 fight with her and Hangman Adam Page in this handicap match. I lose. And that's the end of the story. There was another story where I started off and a wrestler had stolen my luggage. And so we won the tag team belts together. Okay, cool. And then he confesses to me in the ring that, oh, it was actually me, by the way, who did steal that luggage. And so my character, by the way, without any choice, super kicks him and then leaves the ring. And now I reviewed this alongside other reviewers and I learned they had the same story. So this same ridiculousness and randomosity across this entire road to the elite is the same for everybody. It's just different wrestlers are involved in the storyline. And I'm just going to be honest, it's awful. Like there's nothing redeeming about it. Even for those who are trophy hunters, you got to run through road to the elite 10 times. And even once I was like, this wasn't fun at all. Because while I did like the RPG elements, going in and adjusting my stats, because the idea was as you level up, you can then challenge the main roster in the exhibition modes. I was doing that no problem throughout the career mode anyway, so I don't get the point of it at all. It just feels like you wonder where the actual design went for this game. So I just found the career mode here to be a tremendous failure. Even the mini games didn't really liven things up. Some were direct copycats, like out of Pokemon Stadium even, so there was originality lacking here. I know some people will appreciate the arcadey nature of the game, but I can't defend this career mode. To me, there was a real lack of direction here where they could have done a number of things. I mean, I remember growing up on the SmackDown versus Raw 08, 07 campaigns and really loving the storylines there and choosing like who you want to ally with. That was a ton of fun, and I'm just surprised even the bare minimum from the original developers wasn't found here in AEW Fight Forever. So, pardon the pun here if you like Death Note, but the career mode was a total L for me. So then it leans on the matches, right? So you have your typical one-on-one match, you have a tag team match, you can do a triple threat, fatal four-way, you can do a exploding barbed wire death match, which sounds cool, but it's kind of finicky in the way it works. And there are match types that, as an AEW fan, that I feel create an identity for this brand that are missing, like Anarchy in the Arena, like Blood and Guts, and so on and so forth. Street fights, they're just missing here. And you could tell this game was long in development because some of the appearances of the characters, like Trent Beretta still has his long hair. Ty Mello looks completely different. That's fine. They're going to be naturally outdated a little bit because of the game just being naturally a product of game development. You know, it takes years and years for these things to come around. So naturally some stuff will be out of date. That's fine. I think that's where skins can come in and play a factor, but even those are just not there at all. So it just feels very barren. It is a 50+ member roster, which is nice, But this is where I get into the appearance of some of them. Some of them look great. Like Darby Allin genuinely looks good and fits that sort of no mercy appearance. But when you get into the ring, it's where you start to see some of the shortcomings. Like the arenas here are completely empty. Like there's no crowd at all. And even like, I'm like, No Mercy had full arenas, but here it's like the first 2 rows. And if you dare to peer deeper into the back, you're going to be in for a rude awakening when you find out very little of the crowd is there. So the life of the stadium's not even there. And the only differences between these arenas is the tarp around the edge. Maybe it's Revolution, maybe it's Full Gear. And of course, during Double or Nothing, it's a little more apparent with the ramp. Otherwise, though, I mean, every arena looks and feels the same. And this is why the match types, not being unique to AEW, where they have plenty of those, is a little bit frustrating because it could be so much better. I know you're probably thinking, well, what about the wrestling? At the end of the day, that's all I care about. And if that is truly, literally, and I find it hard to believe for many people, but if that really is all you care about, AEW Fight Forever is a acceptable wrestling experience. But even then, it's very buggy, is what I noticed. But underneath those bugs is something that can be enjoyable. Those bugs range from clipping with certain moves, falling out of the ring in the middle of certain moves, clipping through the ring in certain moves. It's a very janky kind of wrestling experience, but that's where some of the sense of progression from career mode is nice. Like as I'm leveling up and maybe sometimes choosing to wrestle in a match on Rampage or AEW Dark, which is funny because like Dark isn't a thing anymore. So immediately that's kind of out of date. You get these experience points, you level your character up, and maybe now you can move a bit quicker around the ring. Maybe now your striking attacks are better. Your consistency of combos is better. There's things there that you feel this sense of progression. It makes the wrestling experience better. But if you're just hopping in and going from member of the cast to member of the cast, you're going to notice that, like, for example, things that SmackDown versus Raw 2007 got right, like, oh, you crack them in the head enough times, therefore they start to bleed. I will strike someone in the leg, and then they'll pull on a full John Moxley and like take out the razor or something like that and just start bleeding all over the ring. The blood in this game is awesome, like especially in the barbed wire death match. It's awesome to just see how coated the ring does get. And AEW has been known to do those types of matches where I said it, like it evokes the Attitude Era. So that's great, but to me as a critic, and I know I sound pretty stingy to people just looking for a casual wrestling experience, I noticed those types of things. Like I remember in SmackDown versus Raw cracking someone over the head with a steel chair and the screen flashes white because you landed enough attacks to the head where they did start to bleed. Here it's just how much damage have you done overall. A lot of the wrestling here is based on a momentum meter. So as you're doing moves or getting hit, you're building momentum. And that's where eventually the momentum bars fill. You do a taunt and you can do a signature move, you can do a finishing move, and it's really easy to rinse and repeat that. As you ramp up the difficulty is where I think the game does shine in that department. Like I prefer, and I'm not trying to sound like a sweat, I do prefer playing on the hardest difficulty in this game though, because that's where, you know, when you get pinned after a finisher, you can mash out of it, which is a really cool feeling. Like, oh, he hit me with his finisher twice, there's a little bit of life, and you can start kind of winning back the fight now because it's all momentum based. So there's a trade-off to that, right? I was complaining a bit about, well, if you don't get cracked in the head enough times, how am I bleeding because he hit me in the leg? But the difference here is you lose that where eventually if you get damaged enough, remember the little silhouette you saw in the SmackDown versus Raw games where like your whole body would eventually go from like green to yellow to red, and you're like, oh boy, now when I'm full red, I'm really hurting here. You slow down in the ring. You don't get that as much in Fight Forever, so any fight is within your grasp, which is actually kind of cool. I did like that, where there is this true sense of momentum there. And that's why I said it can be a very fun pick up and play arcade game. But to me, from the career experience to the match types being lacking, it just feels super incomplete. As you finish these matches and you do anything in the game, you get AEW cash and you can take it to their in-game store, which I did not see any type of microtransactions in. And it's in there that you'll buy first legendary wrestlers like Cody Rhodes, Aubrey Edwards is there, which is awesome. I thought that was a really cool touch. You'll get new things to wear for your characters, new move sets, new pieces to customize the arena with. That's all fun and good, but I just feel like the rewards immediately give you very small return on investment, where I'm not going to keep playing the game because they give you so much money anyway just to get like a new color railing for my arena. But you can go beyond building just the arena and your own wrestler. You could build your own tag team and win with them, which is pretty cool. So there is some elements here, but since AEW has clarified that this isn't going to be an annual thing, I imagine this is a product that a year from now could be totally different. Whether that just be in roster, we already have a good idea of the season 1 roster, like Hook, Danhausen are being added, for example. We already have Matt Hardy as like a pre-order character. So I think the roster will be vastly different, and that's a big thing for a lot of people because then those moves come in and you can use those for your creator wrestler. But for me, it really is match types, arena variety, bug stomping, and somehow fixing this career mode to make it at least mildly enjoyable, because that to me was the thing I was excited about. And I was wondering why when they promised a career mode, why is this so hidden? Now I get it, because, and I can't show it, otherwise I'll get hit with a copyright strike, unfortunately, but it does open with, as an AEW fan, I felt like this very emotional kind of tribute. You see a lot of the familiar faces of AEW during their sort of starting point in their wrestling careers. And it's got this great speech about, like, you know, everyone starts in a different place. So the vision to me was clear what they wanted this career mode to be, but they just poorly executed the finish on it. And you get a really bad storyline that feels super underwhelming and inconclusive. And the match types that you participate in are either buggy or I found kind of uninspired, but the wrestling itself is fun. But the career mode was a huge miss. So I could see this for a lot of people being a fun pick up and play kind of game. But that means that if you're going to buy this game, wait till it's like $20, in my opinion. I know a lot of people, trust me, again, I'm very involved in the AEW community. I'm certainly a lurker. I lurk on Reddit. I lurk in those Instagram comments, those Twitter comments. I sometimes will talk about it on my respective channels. I see a lot of people defending this game out the gate and saying like, yo, this is supposed to be the No Mercy experience. You can't talk about the visuals. You can't talk about the animations. No, like, it's not up to industry standards. It's just not. And it's a good excuse for AEW to kind of lean into, like, yeah, we're going for the classic wrestling experience, but the classics had more meat to them here, and the classics honestly were more polished. So to me, if you want the best bang for your buck, even if you're like me, you're an AEW diehard, it pains me to say, like, you gotta hold off. As far as I'm concerned, you got to. It's just not worth the full 60 bones right now, especially when, as a gamer, because I don't know how many just wrestling fans will be tuning into this video, but as a gamer, I look around the industry and I'm just like, there is so many better places to spend your time right now. This is not competitive enough to me. When it gets a big price cut, maybe around the holidays or something, you can get it for 20, 30. Yeah, I think you can stomach that, and probably then maybe the game has more matches, more arenas, more wrestlers that you can mess around with, and it's a more complete package. Right now, it feels incomplete. I just can't recommend it, and that breaks my heart to say. I love AEW so much, where, like, even reviewing this game, it was like painful in a unique way. I was like, I want to love you so bad, but I can't. So ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got to say on AEW Fight Forever. I apologize if you're like me, you're a huge AEW fan and you just wanted a new fun wrestling game. I know. But shout out to WrestleQuest. That game does look awesome. Kind of 16-bit wrestling RPG. So that's where my wrestling mind for video games is going to now. Here's hoping that doesn't disappoint as well. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, I look forward to seeing your thoughts down below on AEW Fight Forever. And with that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out.